I can still picture the golden sunset filtering through the dusty windows of Margaret's ranch house in rural Arizona, casting long shadows across the oak dining table. It was meant to be just another family barbecue, the kind where the smell of mesquite-smoked ribs hung heavy in the air, and the cicadas buzzed outside like a constant reminder of the endless summer heat. I'd driven out from Phoenix with Jack, my husband of 5 years, thinking maybe this time things would go smoothly. Margaret had always been prickly, but I'd convinced myself that if I kept showing up with a smile and a side dish, she'd eventually thaw. We sat down as the sun dipped lower, plates piled high with coleslaw and cornbread I'd made from scratch. Jack was chatting with his mom about the latest oil rig project he was overseeing, his voice easy and familiar. I stayed quiet, picking at my food, hoping to avoid one of her signature digs. The ranch sprawled out behind us, all red dirt and cactus silhouettes, a far cry from the modest apartment Jack and I shared in the city. Margaret prided herself on her old Western values, which mostly meant judging anyone who didn't live up to her idea of grit and glamour. Then she set down her fork with that deliberate clink, her eyes narrowing on me like a hawk spotting prey. "Emily," she drawled, her voice laced with that fake sweetness I'd come to dread. "You're just too low-class for my boy. Time to hit the road and leave him be." The words landed like a sucker punch in the gut. I blinked, waiting for the punchline, but there wasn't one. The room went still, the only sound the faint hum of the ceiling fan stirring the warm air. I turned to Jack, my heart pounding, expecting him to jump in, to say something like,
"Ma,
that's out of line," but he didn't. He chuckled, a low, dismissive rumble that twisted the knife deeper. "Yeah, Ma's got a point," he muttered, nodding as if it were some inside joke. Something inside me shattered right then. My face flushed hot under the desert sun's lingering warmth, but my hands turned ice cold on the tablecloth. I stared at the pattern of embroidered steers, feeling the world tilt. All those barbecues, those forced conversations under the stars, suddenly felt tainted. Margaret leaned back in her chair, a smug curl to her lips, satisfied as a cat with a fresh kill. Jack wouldn't meet my eyes, fiddling with his napkin like this was no big deal. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping against the terracotta tiles with a screech that made them both glance up. "Fine," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'll make it easy for you." I grabbed my purse from the sideboard, slung it over my shoulder, and headed for the door. Neither of them said a word. Jack stayed planted in his seat, not even a half-hearted wait. The screen door banged shut behind me, and the dry evening breeze hit my face, carrying the scent of sagebrush. Only then did the shaking start, not just from the hurt, but from a fire igniting deep in my chest. I slid into my old pickup truck, the one I'd bought secondhand years ago, and just sat there for a minute, gripping the wheel until my knuckles whitened.
My phone buzzed in my bag.
It was Rachel, my best friend since college. I answered, my voice barely above a whisper. "Rach, I'm done. For good."
She didn't pry.
"Come straight over," she said, her tone solid as a rock. "I've got the guest room ready." The drive back to Phoenix was a haze of highway lights and semis rumbling past. Jack's laugh echoed in my head, mocking every promise we'd made under those vast western skies. I'd pictured our marriage crumbling in 1,000 ways, arguments over money, drifting apart, but never like this, never with him siding against me so casually. When I pulled up to Rachel's cozy bungalow on the outskirts of town, she was waiting on the porch, arms open. I fell into her hug, and the tears finally broke free. We didn't hash it out that night. She brewed some strong coffee, and we sat on her couch, the city glow filtering through the blinds. Every so often, she'd pat my hand, and I'd nod, too raw to speak. I didn't know what dawn would bring, how I'd face the world, but one thing was crystal clear: I wasn't stepping foot in that ranch house again. Before that barbecue turned my world upside down, there was a time when Jack seemed like the answer to every lonely night I'd spent staring at the stars. We met 6 years back at a rodeo fundraiser in Tucson. I'd volunteered to help with the raffle, juggling tickets and flyers in the sweltering heat. He appeared out of nowhere, tall in his cowboy boots and button-down, holding the gate open for me. "Looks like you've got your hands full," he said with a grin that crinkled his eyes. "Need a hand?" I laughed, a bit flustered. "Only if you're okay with getting roped into this mess." Next thing I knew, he was setting up booths with me, cracking jokes about bidding on the ugliest belt buckles. By the end of the night, I knew he worked in oil, loved hiking the canyons, and made me feel like I mattered. Our first date was at a little taco stand by the Salt River, where he showed up with my favorite horchata, remembering a throwaway comment I'd made. Small gestures like that hooked me. When we tied the knot a year later in a simple courthouse ceremony, nothing fancy, just us and a few friends, I thought we'd conquer anything together. But Margaret never bought into it. From day one, she sized me up like I was a stray dog wandering into her pristine corral. At the wedding, she eyed my sundress and said it was quaint, her code for cheap. When she first visited our apartment, she scanned the sparse furniture and sniffed. Jack's ex had a real knack for making a place feel like home. I brushed it off. And so did Jack. "Ma's just blunt," he'd say, kissing my forehead. "Don't sweat it. She came from old money, ranch land passed down generations, while I grew up in a trailer park in Nevada, with parents who scraped by on diner wages. My splurges were thrift store finds, not spa days." I figured time would show her my worth, my love for Jack, my steady job as a schoolteacher, my loyalty. Her barb sharpened over time. "Teaching's cute. All those summers off," she'd say. Or, "Jack hustles so hard. Good thing you don't have to foot the bill alone." I tried winning her over, hosting potlucks, buying outfits on credit to fit in at her gatherings. Jack would shrug when I'd vent. She said in her ways, "Let it roll off." One Christmas, I scrimped to buy him a leather wallet he'd admired. At her ranch, she glanced at it and said, "Nice." But his ex got him one in genuine alligator. Lasts forever. Jack chuckled. I faked a smile.
But it gnawed at me.
Rachel saw it early. "She's tearing you down."
Ink.
And Jack's letting her. I'd wave it off. But deep down, her poison was seeping in, making me doubt myself. I kept hoping for a breakthrough, that kindness would crack her shell. But the insults piled up, each one a pebble in my boot on this long trail. The barbecue was the avalanche I never saw coming. The little digs weren't the worst, it was how they snuck in, wrapped in polite chit-chat, leaving invisible scars. Margaret had a gift for it, like a scorpion sting, quick and venomous. If I grilled burgers at her ranch, she'd take a bite and say, "Not bad. But Jack prefers M with a kick." "I can show you my recipe sometime." If I wore a new blouse, she'd tilt her head. "Cute, but something more tailored might suit your build better." Even her hellos carried weight. "Emily, you look relaxed." At first, I chalked it up to generational differences. But the years turned them into a constant ache. Jack never shut it down. He'd grin like it was harmless ribbing.
Sometimes he'd pile on.
One 4th of July picnic under the Arizona stars. She eyed my potato salad and said, "Real women know how to keep their men fed right. homemade pies, starched shirts, sweet notes in lunch pails. Jack laughed. M's more the store-bought type. It stung like salt in a cut. I started changing, baking apple pies that often came out burnt, pressing his work shirts every weekend, even running errands for Margaret, like picking up feed for her horses or dropping off wildflowers from the market. Nothing stuck. Once, I brought her a basket of fresh peaches from a roadside stand. She peeked inside. Oh, not the organic kind. Family get-togethers became minefields. I'd hover on the edges, nodding through talk of cattle prices and oil futures, bracing for her next singer. It could be my outfit, my cooking, even my job. Teaching's adorable. All those vacations, I'd bite my tongue, knowing if I snapped, Jack would call me dramatic. What hurt most was him not having my back, the man I'd vowed forever to, choosing peace over me. I toyed with leaving more than once. Rachel urged me, "You deserve respect."
Eminência.
Know that. But I convinced myself love meant enduring the rough patches. That persistence would win Margaret over. Deep inside,
Though.
I was losing ground in a fight rigged against me. The tipping point hit one scorching August afternoon at her annual ranch roundup. I'd brought a fruit salad, vibrant with local melons. She set it down, glanced at Jack, and said, "This is why I always said marry someone who can rustle up a real spread." Laughter rippled, Jack included. I stood there, tongs in hand, cheeks burning hotter than the sun. That night, when I confronted him, he shrugged. "She's joshing. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill." My pain got dismissed again. It wasn't just Margaret anymore. It was Jack enabling her, eroding our bond like wind on sandstone. By the time that special barbecue invite came, the fractures ran deep. I didn't know it, but I was heading into the storm that would blow it all apart. Jack dropped the news on a Thursday evening while I was marking papers in our cramped kitchen, the AC humming against the Phoenix heat. "Ma's throwing a special barbecue Sunday," he said casually, leaning on the counter. "Says she's got big news. Be ready by noon." I looked up. Pen paused. "Big news? Like what?" He shrugged. "Dunno." But she sounded chipper. Part of me wanted to bail, invent a migraine. But another sliver clung to hope. Maybe this was her olive branch. I dressed carefully that day, a flowy sundress, boots polished, hair in loose waves. Staring in the mirror, I whispered, "This could be different." The drive out to the ranch was silent, Jack fiddling with country radio while I watched the desert blur by. Margaret greeted us at the gate with a smile too wide, red flag number 1. Her smiles often preceded a barb. The setup was picture perfect. Picnic tables under mesquite trees, grills smoking, iced tea sweating in pitchers. For the first half hour, it was almost normal. She quizzed Jack on his rig work, even asked about my classroom. "Still wrangling those kiddos?" I nodded politely, but her tone tightened my gut. Then she leaned back, eyes shifting between us. "You know," she started, voice honeyed but edged, "I've been pondering what's best for my son." My spine stiffened. Jack stared at his plate. "He's busted his tail. Deserves a partner who lifts him up, matches his drive."
Pause.
"Emily, you're sweet and all, but you're just too low class. Pack your bags and skedaddle." Air vanished from the yard. My ribs froze mid-bite. I whipped toward Jack, pleading silently for defense. "That's my wife."
Ma.
Instead, he snorted a laugh, nodding. "Ma's onto something." My world spun. No regret in his eyes. Just blank agreement. Margaret sat smug, like she'd called a spade a spade. I lowered my fork deliberately. "No need to ask twice," I murmured. The yard hushed. I rose, grabbed my bag from the bench, and strode to my truck.
No chase. No please.
Just the crunch of gravel under my boots and the vast sky above. The drive blurred into one long streak of asphalt and heartache. I ended up at Rachel's, knuckles white on the wheel. She opened the door, took one look, and enveloped me. What the hell happened? I collapsed inside, voice fracturing. "I can't. Just let me." She hugged tighter. No questions. We sank onto her couch. I spilled it all, Margaret's words. Jack's betrayal. Rachel's jaw clenched. And he just sat there? I nodded, tears flowing. She exhaled. "This ain't new."
Eminencia.
"You've been choking on her venom for years." I whispered. "I thought he'd fight for me. Just once." Her eyes softened, hands squeezing mine. "You've given everything. Can't keep burning yourself out for them." I stared at the floor, twisting my ring. "Crash here," she insisted. No going back. It felt like fleeing at first, but facing that ranch again?
Impossible.
Rachel fetched a quilt and chamomile tea. We sat in quiet. Hours ticked by before I could breathe steady. When I finally spoke, it was hushed. "What's next?" "You don't gotta know yet," she said. "Just start valuing yourself higher than they do." That night, on her couch, I replayed the scene under the desert sky. Margaret's calm cruelty. Jack's laugh like a brand. I mourned the optimistic girl I'd been, vowing to rebuild. Come morning, sleep evaded me, but resolve dawned. I wouldn't let them crush me. The morning after felt raw, like a fresh bruise under the harsh Arizona sun. The hurt lingered, but clarity cut through. No more rose-tinted glasses. Jack hadn't called, Margaret neither. Not a peep of concern. Rachel whipped up huevos rancheros, sliding a plate my way. "Time to map out next steps," she said softly. I poked at the eggs. "Divorce? Too soon." She nodded. "Not pushing that. But you can't waltz back acting like nothing happened. Need a strategy." Her words echoed all day. I borrowed her tablet, opened a fresh note. Fingers hesitated. Then I listed what they'd stripped from me. Not cash or stuff, but self-worth.
Joy.
The easy laugh I'd lost to constant scrutiny. The list stretched long, turning grief to grit. By midday, I strolled to the neighborhood diner, craving space from the walls closing in. The place was quiet, truckers nursing coffee. A family in a booth. I ordered black coffee,
Pulled out a notepad.
and sketched my path. Temporary digs if I skipped home. Budgeting on my teacher's salary. Legal steps to protect assets if push came to shove. Each bullet point steadied me. This wasn't escape, it was fortification, ensuring they grasped my value. Evening found me back on Rachel's couch. Notepad splayed. She eyed it. "Plotting something?" I shut it, just sorting my ducks. She grinned, understanding. That night, I checked my phone, one text from Jack. "You stormed off. Ma reckons you owe her sorry." I gaped, thumb frozen. "Sorry for what? Breathing? Enduring?" No reply. I tucked it away, diving back into plans. No more pleas for validation.
No warnings.
They'd learn the hard way. 2 weeks post-walkout. I wasn't that shattered woman anymore.
Pain remained.
But it fueled a laser focus. I'd gathered evidence, bank slips showing my contributions to the ranch mortgage. I'd co-signed to help Jack's business. Receipts for loans I'd backed. Even voice memos of Margaret's snipes and Jack's chuckles. Rachel dubbed it my war chest. Legally, in Arizona, I could retract my guarantor status on the business loan, forcing a call-in if he defaulted, and I knew his oil gig was shaky with market dips. But I aimed smarter, not scorched earth. Margaret cherished her community standing, queen of local rodeos and charity galas. When I heard she was hosting a big Western-themed fundraiser at the ranch, inviting oil execs and neighbors, I saw my opening. Not for destruction, but revelation. That Saturday, I dressed sharp, fitted jeans, boots, a blouse that screamed confidence. Rachel drove, parking discreetly. The ranch buzzed with string lights, barbecue pits, guests in cowboy hats mingling. Margaret glided through, her silver jewelry glinting. She spotted me, smile slipping before recovering. Emily?
Didn't send you an invite.
Didn't need one. I replied evenly. Got something to share. Chatter hushed.
Jack.
Schmoozing a suit. Went rigid. I stepped center, voice carrying over the crackling fire. Won't keep y'all long. Just set in the record straight. From my pocket, I hit play on my phone. Margaret's voice boomed. Too low class. Hit the road. Jack's laugh followed. Ma's got a point. Gasps rippled. Jack paled. Margaret's lips thinned. I pocketed the device. That's why I left. But folks, my name's on the ranch mortgage and his loan. Tomorrow, I'm pullin' my support. Murmurs swelled. Bank'll call it due, I added. Might mean sellin' off land. Margaret hissed. You wouldn't. Already filed prelims, I said calmly. And some of Jack's clients? They've heard my side. Might shift business my way, startin' a consulting firm for oil education outreach. The air thickened with shock. I didn't yell. Truth sufficed. With a nod to the crowd, I turned and left, the desert night welcoming me like an old friend. 3 days later, they turned up at Rachel's favorite coffee spot in downtown Phoenix. A quirky joint with cactus decor and strong brews. Margaret looked frayed, hair unkempt.
No macaparmer.
Jack sported bags under his eyes. Like sleep had ditched him. They slid into the booth opposite me, uninvited. Emily, Margaret started, voice quivering like a leaf in the wind. We messed up. I messed up. Please, don't go through with this. We'll lose the ranch. Everything we've built. I stirred my latte deliberately, letting the silence stretch like the endless highway. Her eyes pleaded, the same ones that had once gleamed with disdain as I endured her slights. You called me low-class trash, I said quietly, meeting her gaze. Now it turns out I'm the one holding the cards you can't afford to lose. She winced, as if the words were a lasso tightening. Jack leaned in.
Small.
We're family. Let's talk this out. I set my mug down.
Studying them.
The hurt flared. But so did pity, not the condescending kind, but real, bone deep. They'd built their world on belittling others, never pausing to see the cracks. Family? I echoed. Family stands up for each other.
Jack.
You laughed while she tore me down. Tears welled in Margaret's eyes. I was wrong. Scared you'd drag him down.
But
you're stronger than I gave credit. I nodded slowly. This wasn't the revenge I'd first envisioned. The total takedown. In those 2 weeks, poring over papers and soul-searching with Rachel, I'd realized destruction wouldn't heal me. It had just spread the poison. But they needed to feel the weight. To learn. Here's the deal, I said, pulling out a folder. I won't pull the guarantor yet. But we rework the mortgage, my name off. Fair split on equity. And Jack. Therapy for us. If we even try salvaging this. Margaret. An apology, not just words, but actions. Volunteer at my school. See what low-class folks build every day. They exchanged glances. The fight draining out. Jack nodded. Anything.
Eminência. Margaret whispered, I'm sorry.
Truly. I stood, leaving cash for the bill. Prove it, I said, stepping into the sun. No tears this time. Just a tentative step forward. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of lawyers and hard talks. In Arizona, community property laws made the split straightforward. I got my share without bankrupting them. Jack and I started counseling, unpacking years of unspoken resentments. He admitted his silence stemmed from fear of rocking the boat with his ma, a pattern from childhood. Margaret, to her credit, showed up at my classroom, helping with reading groups, her tough exterior cracking as kids' stories touched her. One evening, over tacos at a food truck, Jack said, I should have had your back from day one. I squeezed his hand. Yeah, but we're learning. Rachel beamed when I updated her. That's my girl, strong, not spiteful. The reckoning didn't end at that coffee shop. It unfolded like a slow desert bloom. Thorny but beautiful. Back home, our apartment felt foreign now. I dove into the logistics. I hired a family lawyer from Tucson, one specializing in equitable divisions under Arizona's no-fault divorce statutes, if it came to that. But I held off filing, giving them a window. Margaret called first, voice humbled. Emily.
I meant what I said.
Tell me how to make amends. I suggested she join a local women's group I volunteered with, focusing on empowerment for underprivileged families. To my surprise, she did, sharing her own stories of scraping by early in her marriage, vulnerabilities she'd buried under pride. Jack and I met weekly with a therapist in Phoenix, a no-nonsense woman who called out his enabling. Passive agreement is active harm, she said. He opened up about growing up under Margaret's thumb, always the golden boy afraid to disappoint. I let her define us, he confessed one session. Tears in his eyes. Lost sight of what you mean to me. I shared my scars too, the erosion of self from constant judgment. It wasn't easy. Arguments flared. Old wounds reopened. But glimmers emerged, Jack defending me when Margaret slipped into old habits during a tense dinner.
Ma.
That's not how we talk now, he said firmly. Meanwhile, I launched my outreach firm quietly, consulting on education for oil workers' kids. Some of Jack's contacts did switch, but ethically, I made sure it was their choice.
No coerción.
The income gave me independence, a safety net. One crisp fall day, Margaret invited me to the ranch alone. We walked the trails, dust kicking up under our boots. I saw you as a threat, she admitted, staring at the horizon. But you're the spine Jack needed. Taught me humility. I nodded. We all got lessons here. Respect ain't given. It's earned both ways. By winter, our marriage mended tentatively. Not perfect, but stronger, built on mutual stand-up. The drama faded, replaced by quiet growth, a family reborn from the ashes. As the Arizona sun set on that chapter, I reflected on the journey from heartbreak to healing. The drama had been intense, a whirlwind of betrayal and bold moves. But the human side won out. Jack and I recommitted, vowing open communication, no more silent complicity. Margaret transformed, becoming a mentor in my outreach programs, her ranch hosting fundraisers for local schools. The biggest lesson? Boundaries aren't revenge, they're self-care. In the vast Western landscape, where survival means respecting the land and each other, we learned that family thrives on empathy, not entitlement. I emerged not bitter, but empowered, knowing my worth was never up for debate. Years later, sharing stories around campfires, I'd say, pain can break you or build you. Choose build. And in that choice, we all found redemption. The dust settled slowly, like after a monsoon storm washing the desert clean. Our reworked mortgage closed without fanfare, my equity cashed out fairly, leaving the ranch intact but humbling them. Jack sold some assets to stabilize his loan, a wake-up call to his financial overreach. Legally, it was airtight, emotionally, transformative. Counseling became our lifeline. Sessions peeled layers, my resentment from years of invisibility, Jack's guilt over his passivity. I was a coward, he admitted one night, holding me under the stars. Won't happen again. We rebuilt date by date. Hikes in the Grand Canyon, quiet drives through saguaro forests, rediscovering the spark that drew us together. Margaret's change was profound. Volunteering exposed her to stories like mine, women rising from modest roots. She apologized publicly at a family gathering, tears streaming. I was blind to your strength. Emily. Forgive an old fool. We forged a cautious bond, sharing recipes and ranch lore. Her once sharp tongue softened. My business flourished, partnering with schools and oil firms for STEM programs, proving low-class roots bred resilience. Rachel cheered. You turned poison to power. The article of faith? In America's West, where pioneers forged paths through hardship, true grit means lifting others, not tearing down. We stumbled, but rose kinder.
Now,
as I watch sunrises over the horizon with Jack by my side, I know redemption comes not from vengeance, but understanding. And that's the lightest burden of all.